So have you ever had a flat face like this and wondered how you can shape it into something more wearable like this? It's actually a relatively straightforward and simple process. It just has a few requirements from the pelt itself. Like, this pelt was not a good pelt to do this with, so that's why it's not perfect. So the very first thing you're going to want to do once you have the pelt that you like to work with is what we call a hydration test. It's exactly what you think it is. You're going to rehydrate part of the leather, preferably by soaking it, but you can also just get a little bit wet like this and choose a part of the leather that if something bad happens to it, you are not going to be sad about. Rehydrate it and see if it is going to withstand any kind of manipulation. It does not matter if the water is cold or warm as long as it is wet, which all water should be. And then once you get that part saturated with water, you're going to want to pull on it and see if it rips and tears. So for example, I used 2 fingers to pull on this, and you can see here, this is ripping and tearing. This face is not a candidate for rehydration and working with. This one I'm not going to mess with. So let's say that your pelt did pass the hydration test. It didn't rip or tear, it didn't fall apart like tissue paper, maybe it even had some stretch to it still, which is like the optimal conditions. The next thing you're gonna wanna do is to make or obtain a form. You can use something like a taxidermy form, like this is a rabbit form, that's a deer form, or you can just make something. Like I've used balled up old newspaper and mail, and then put the pelt over that and shaped it using that. You could also get something like some air dry clay or modeling clay and use that as well. Whatever you're using, make sure that it does have the correct shape that you're looking for. Then you're going to want to rehydrate the pelt and put it onto that form. Now, the way that you have the pelt laying on the form or the face laying on that form is how it should dry. So if you want the eye holes to be more open, for example, you're going to want to use pins and pin them more open. This may also require you doing something like stretching the eye holes or ripping them open a little more if that's what you desire. You can see that her eye holes are slightly enlarged compared to what they would be normally. In addition to using pins and letting it dry naturally, you'll also want to check in on the pelt and make sure that it is still staying to the shape that you want. It's kind of similar to watching a taxidermy mount dry. As the skin dries out and no longer is going to become wet, it will start to harden up a little bit and it'll retain the shape that you give it for the most part. So you can also add stuff like a fabric backing to it. It won't necessarily help it hold shape, but it might be more comfortable for you if you wanted to wear it. One thing to keep in mind is if you are making something in order to wear it, humans have very rounded heads, so you're going to want to make the shape very domed at the top of the head as opposed to a little more realistic where it's more flat. Now, if you do mess up, you might be able to re-soak the pelt and try again, but ideally you want to get the shape that you want on the first go. I've had Mocha here hanging up on a wall, which is not going to be ideal for what she is, for years, and she still has retained her shape for the most part. There's this wrinkle that has formed over time, but otherwise she's holding up great. I believe that she does have a little bit of extra paint on some parts of her, which may add a little bit of stiffness. Not necessary, but it is something that you can do if you choose. But ultimately, try not to re-soak the pelt once you've got it completely dried and how you'd like it. While you might be able to, depending on your leather, if you keep redoing that, it will eventually break down that leather side of the pelt. Anyway, sorry that this video is long. I hope this was informational and helped you understand how you can make something like this.